Welcome. Excited for our presentation here on how to make it rain with cold email outreach. And Sam is going to be our speaker today. He has a lot of expertise in the space and runs his own company helping other businesses throughout the sales process. So just going to give a quick introduction. This is a workshop put on by Prepare for VC and Boston New Technology. Prepare for VCs are organization that focuses on helping startups get ready for fundraising rounds, growing through both cohort and individualized programming. And we have a big community focus here as well. And then one of the communities we support is called Boston New Technology, that started as an event organization about 11 years ago now and has a mix of um, startup showcase style events, workshops with different speakers and experts, and fireside chat type events as well, with the whole goal of supporting the startup community and ecosystem and helping everybody learn from the experience of the experts and the entrepreneurs that we bring into the network. So, yeah, really excited to have everybody today. Feel free to give an introduction in the chat about what you're working on. We have a chat section, Q&A section as well, where you can either do a text-based or a video Q&A, and we'll have some dedicated time towards the end of the presentation for questions as well. And Sam mentioned, there's going to be some interaction here too, where he can start working on some of the things he's talking about during the presentation. And yeah, really excited, to kick this off. So Sam, I'm going to hand it over to
Awesome.
you to get us started.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jason and the Prepare for VC team. I am very excited to be teaching this topic today. It is a powerful topic, how to make it rain with cold email. Of course, I'm sure you're probably attracted to that, kind of language. Everybody wants to, as a business or some type of idea, and sales is one of the most important ways to get the word out about whatever it is that you're doing, and to have conversations and achieve whatever goals that you want to achieve, whether that's partnerships, whether that's revenue, new customers, getting a new job, et cetera, et cetera. So just a quick background on me and my company and what makes me qualified, I think, to teach some of this is, so my company, 8Cast Corporation, we're a management consultancy, and we help small businesses and startups with their kind of, it's a little bit similar to Prepare for VC. We do a little bit of like pitch deck and financial modeling, all that type of stuff. But where I've really found I can add some of the most help is actually on the sales side. So I pretty much worked my entire career in startups and small businesses. My first real entrepreneurial job, or job at a startup, was at a failed startup called EvoSpend. We raised a few $1 million, and we were trying to build this white label prepaid debit card platform back in 2011 to 2013. And one of the reasons, there are a number of reasons why a venture may fail, but one of the reasons why we weren't successful is because we didn't have a sales pipeline. We had a few early customers, and we didn't really have a strategic way, a repeatable process of getting our message in front of people and having them sign up, for our platform, right? And hand over their cold hard cash. And so over the years, starting around 2016, I realized that this is something that I was really passionate about helping companies figure out. And so I took a few roles as a business development representative or sales development representative, which is the really the most entry level job you can have in sales, right? Somebody who's like a prospector. And through that, I've learned selling different things from healthcare tech to education tech to some fintech to HR tech, right? While a lot of it is tech, a lot of it's been B2B experience. And so that's the basis upon which I'm going to be teaching today. And one of the tools that I've figured out how to utilize very, very well is cold email. Now, everything works out there. Cold email works, cold calling works, LinkedIn works, inbound lead generation works, Google Ads work, everything works. But obviously we're here to learn today about cold email, and it can be a very powerful tool, either by itself or in complement with those other tools as well. So we've got a good number of people here. So I'm going to share my screen. Let's go to the presentation that I have set up. So how to make it rain with cold email outreach. So I'm going to structure this presentation or this workshop maybe a little bit differently than some of you guys are used to. So we'll spend the first 10 minutes or so just going through some basic outbound planning that, I think, just go to market strategy, right? Just kind of high level nuts and bolts and how you can set up your cold email campaigns. Then we'll dive into some copywriting. I actually want you guys to leave this workshop with very actionable skills that you can implement, starting tomorrow and put meetings on your calendar that same day or the day after, because that's literally the power of cold email. And then towards the end, we'll talk a little bit about just, some special topics in cold email, such as email deliverability, how to build lists in Sales Navigator, or, another tool, which I'll go through called Apollo. And then the end will be for questions Q&A. So we'll reserve quite a bit of time to dive into specific questions you have, and you can ask me anything that you want. So I'm going to start my timer. I'll begin the first segment now. All right. So just a quick overview. So as I mentioned, we'll start with some goals and outbound planning. So the main goal of most cold outreach is to generate a pipeline of interested leads for salespeople, whether that's yourself as a founder, whether that's for an account executive, or, director of sales, whatever. An additional goal of cold outreach is for customer discovery. So this is when you reach out to companies or people with the intention of learning more about their needs and pain points in order to refine your product, service, or messaging. So the topics that we're going to be going through today are really geared towards either of these two goals, which most, early stage companies tend to fall into. Either they're trying to discover who their customers are, or they're just trying to build more of a pipeline of interested leads for their internal sales team. Just a quick note on spamming. So what I'm going to be teaching today is different than spamming. So legitimate cold email is legal under GDPR regulations. In Europe, this is particularly relevant. In the US, it's a little bit more of a gray area. I think we're a little bit more capitalistic, obviously. But, for our purposes, and I'm not judging spamming. I've done campaigns where I've sent out mass unrelevant emails or non-relevant emails to people. And so for those purposes, let's consider spamming as sending out a large volume of email in a short period of time that is not personalized, not relevant, and does not give the user the ability to opt out. So I'm not judging anybody that does do these types of things. It's not to say that you can't actually generate leads doing it, because you absolutely can. It's a numbers game. That being said, spamming does have a few risks. So one is reputational. Two is the quality of the leads may not be great, right? And then number three, of course, is, you can then potentially blacklist your domains and things of that nature. So it can work. But what I think we're finding now in modern B2B prospecting is that spamming people get really, really annoyed and pissed off by it. And so it's better to use a more human buyer-centric approach, which is what we'll be going through today. Oh, by the way, Jason, if there's any questions that pop up that you think might be relevant, just let me know so
Sure.
that way I can address them. So I want to quickly go through some outbound planning. So what I've created here, this is a sheet that, will be shared with you guys after the meeting. So there's 4 different tabs on here. So when I run my cold email, or when you're doing, frankly, any marketing or sales or any really business, right? A startup is really it starts out as an idea. It starts out as a thesis. You're like, hey, I think that I can help customers with X, Y, and Z, right? And so in our marketing and in our sales efforts, we also want to be thinking from a very science, hypothesis-driven approach. And so, so we've got set up here some experiments. I have a sample cadence, which just gives you an idea of, how your sequences should be when you're actually doing your cold email. And then I have a funnel and then a checklist. So we're going to start with the funnel. Because this is where most people start. So this is just kind of a simple mathematical funnel for how you can think about your go-to-market strategy planning. So let me see if I can zoom in for you guys. Also, I can. Okay, perfect. All right. So let's say you had a $100,000 revenue goal that you wanted to achieve this year. And let's say that the average annual contract value, or average amount that a new customer is worth was $5,000. So based upon that, you would need 20 deals. This is monthly, but let me just get rid of that. So it'd be 20 deals. If you had a 20% close rate, now sometimes you may not know this, but it's okay to kind of put an estimate here. You could put 10%, you could put 30%. For most B2B companies, you probably want to be around every 1 in 5 opportunities you have. You should get as a win. So that would give you 100 opportunities. So the number, now you can't assume that every person that you speak to about your business is going to be a good fit. So let's say 70% of those 100 opportunities, let's say 70% of the people you speak to actually, will be opportunities in your CRM. That would mean you would need 143 meetings, initial meetings, to be able to create that amount of pipeline. And, based upon just some numbers that I do in my cold email outreach, at minimum, what I look for is a 4% meeting rate. Now, depending on the type of business you're doing and how good your copy is dialed in, your understanding of your ICP and your personalization strategy, it should be higher. Right now, for some of my client campaigns, as well as for me, it's about 8 to 10%. But 4% is probably about the minimum of what you would probably want. Otherwise, your outreach just really isn't that efficient. So with those kind of numbers, you'd be looking at reaching out to 3,600 prospects within a year, or per 100,000 of revenue, we could say in this case. And so part of the reason why I started with this is a lot of people think that their total addressable market is like the entire universe of companies, especially in B2B, available to them. But the reality is that there is, you're going to need to really, really think about, like, what is that market actually look like? For some companies, it may be 10,000, 100,000 companies that they can sell to. For others, it might be 100 companies that they can sell to. But this kind of funnel planning here will just really give you a kind of numeric representation of what a realistic, cold email outreach funnel could look like. One other thing that I also included in here for you guys, which I think is really useful, is so a lot of prospecting work is very, very tedious, while it is very advantageous to learn in any role. Sales skills are important to learn in general, right? Especially as entrepreneurs. It's like probably one of the number one skills, I think, as we all know. That being said, I totally understand that this is not work that, if you're the CEO of a company, a founder, and you've got a million different tasks, while this is a relatively high value task to your organization, it may not necessarily be the highest value task to you, right? And so what I created here was just a simple calculator for which you could just do some basic planning. So let's say you hire, a virtual assistant or an SDR, and you can plug in an hourly rate here. You can make it higher for an SDR. Of course, it's going to be a little bit lower for a VA. But if they can do 5 personalized cold emails an hour, and we'll get into a little bit of like what personalized means or relevance means a little bit later. I'm going to talk about copy. But here, if they could do 5 of those emails an hour, you're looking at 715 hours. That person's working 40 hours a week or 20 hours a week, right? You can kind of, back into how long that's going to take them to complete. And then here you can kind of see, what the total cost would be. So when you're doing this, right, you want to, maybe as the founder, or salesperson yourself, maybe you want to do the first 50 to 100 or 250 kind of emails yourself. And then you're going to have a really good template for which you can kind of outsource this kind of work, because you'll be able to figure out what works well for your outreach and then train somebody else on doing it. And so I just wanted to make sure you guys had a solid foundation for your go-to-market strategy planning, because in early stage companies, this is generally what it is, right? It's either a founder or founding team, right? Maybe there's a salesperson, but most often not, because, you kind of, as the founder, generally need to build out sales processes for your company. And so this, I think, gives you a good planning mechanism for how you're actually going to go ahead and build your pipeline. So I'm going to pause really quickly and see if there's any questions that anybody has on that sheet. Okay.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions so far? Looks like, yeah, there's a lot of introductions in the chat, which is
Okay,
great.
cool. No
But
worries then. Yeah, keep the questions coming as they arise, and I'm just going to continue going through this. So the other aspect that I wanted to talk about is, so once you have your universe of prospective companies that you want to reach out to, you can set up different experiments. So an experiment in my mind, here there's just kind of some, I just put random numbers at the top, and this totals 1,000. So let's say there's 1,000 companies in this universe. You can change these numbers in blue. These are all drivers. And then the other things are calculations in black. And so literally you could break down your outreach experiments in a few different ways. You could break them down by, maybe you have a business that has a few different product or service types, right? So you could, put those in here. Maybe you want to try a different type of copy. You can experiment on that too. You can experiment by, and you should. Okay, so that's the stopping for the first segment. I'm just going to quickly go through this. You can experiment by title and break it down and say, hey, I want to send copy to founders, CEOs, to CTOs, to CMOs, to directors of marketing, et cetera, et cetera. And this could give you a very good statistical over time, right? As you start to reach out to hundreds, thousands of prospects, you're going to start to see, like, where will I get the most bang for my buck? What types of titles will be responding the best to my messaging. Same thing for industry, company size, and then you can also, I would also call to actions as well. So like maybe you should have emails where you directly ask for a meeting, and maybe you should have emails where you just ask for a response. And you'd be surprised. Sometimes in some emails or some industries, directly asking for a meeting can work very, very well. For others, you might have to build a little bit more of a relationship, and asking for a response gets a conversation going and allows you to, develop a relationship from there and eventually get meetings on the back end. So I just wanted to give you a few different planning frameworks for your go-to-market strategy. And then the last thing is, because there's so much involved in cold email, I set up a checklist, a pretty comprehensive checklist for you guys that covers deliverability, copywriting, your ideal customer profile, and sequencing, so that you can really leverage a lot of the best practices that I've learned in my business, as well as other people that I follow as well. So I think this could be a good document for your overall planning. Okay. All right. So it looks like we got some questions. Travis Hopkins, you have the link to download the formulas. Yeah, so we'll send that out after the session. Are we going to get access to that spreadsheet, Andrew? Yes, you'll get access. Andrew Benedict, does day of the week or time of the day affect the success rate of cold emails? This is a great question. So yes and no. So Fridays are, oh, sorry, I may have cut out there. Fridays are actually a pretty decent day for prospecting, because a lot of executives are, maybe not as busy. And so that can be cool. Weekends, I would try out cold email. Definitely don't cold call people on the weekends. They get pissed off about that. But I've actually cold emailed people on the weekends and won business out of it, because they're, that tends to be when people are planning, but people are still checking their email or maybe working, and you just may not see them. So yeah, Andrew, all of those things, like you can add to that experiments framework, right? Actually, that's a great one. Maybe time of day is like another area where you can do that that experimentation. Okay, so let's continue moving forward. All right. So just one last thing actually I do want to talk about with that process. So hiring an SDR virtual assistant. This is a little bit tailored to virtual assistants, but it can work with SDRs as well. Like, you want to hire 3 at the same time, I would say. Now, it doesn't mean you want to hire them in the sense of like, hire them full time or whatever, but you want to give them a paid assignment, have them research and do like 5 to 10 accounts and load them into a sequence. And then you want to select the best candidate. Then you want to do, some cold emails for 250 accounts. You want to review your stats and tweak, and then you want to repeat to 500. And the goal here is you want to generate 10 to 20 meetings, right? Because then you'll be able to assess the quality of those leads. And then from there, you can have a good grasp on how effective your outreach is, and you should be able to scale. So just kind of like a quick guide here, and you'll get access to this as well. So, all right, now let's dive into the copywriting section of this course. All right, so these are some best practices for subject lines. So you want to write your subject lines almost as if you were writing an internal email. So this is really important. You should A/B test like marketing types of emails, but those tend to be like a little bit suspicious to people. They're like, this person's trying to sell me something. So generally you want to write, them as if like somebody was sending it to them inside the company. And I'll kind of show you a few different examples of that. Generally, shorter is better. So, and this is kind of the case with any type of cold outreach, whether that's cold calling, whether that's cold email, whether that's LinkedIn, getting to the point as quickly as possible, because sales is you're naturally interrupting people. You need to get the point across as quickly as possible and as little as words as possible and as clear language as possible. So generally shorter is going to be better. However, longer can work if they're highly personalized and relevant. And the last best practice is to A/B test your subject lines. So here's an example of a campaign that, we've been running for a client. This is like actually a follow-up sequence. It didn't really do that well, but it has some good open rates on here. And it just also shows like how you can get pretty high open rates on your campaign. So you'll see there's 4 different variations with the same copy. So when you're doing A/B testing, just in case, some people don't know, A/B testing is a framework for experimentation. So you're testing one variable against the other, where all the other variables stay the same. So in this case, we have the same opening copy in the email, but we're testing the different subject lines. So A, B, C, D are the different variations here. And so you can see that, there's Apollo distributed, 69 contacts over these 4 different emails. And as we can see, the top performing email here was regarding 2023 DE&I initiatives. Now, you'll notice that this regarding here, typically when you see a RE, it's from a, email thread, right? And so I kind of knew that. And so even though I'd never spoken to these people before, we kind of drafted the email from the perspective of, hey, this was like already an internal email that you were talking about, right? And so that way, I just have known doing this over a few different campaigns that, you're going to get pretty solid open rate. So anything above like 50% is pretty good. So these ones just didn't really resonate with the target market that we were going with, but these DE&I ones actually did. And so that was really important. Even they had a little bit higher click rates as well. And so generally you want to kind of keep them short, to the point, and kind of like internal emails. So here's another set of subject lines that are a little bit longer, but you'll see they're a little bit longer, but they actually kind of reference something specific about the company, or in other cases, it could be the person. So in the first one, regarding company's brand alignment and social equity program, right? So that's going to be like, to the person that we're sending out to, that's going to be a very, very, very relevant email. And they're going to probably most likely open that. Second thing, regarding company's mission of accelerating the economies of tomorrow, right? And generally when we're sending these, in this type of campaign, we're sending them to pretty senior people in marketing, or who are responsible for, some type of DE&I initiative. And so, just the fact that we actually did that research to understand the company and like what are their alignments, and we put that in the subject line, guarantees that we're going to get a high open rate on those emails. And so those are 2 examples that I kind of use. Now here's a bunch of other ones from AJ, who is a cold email guru. And so he has a few different, or at least 13 different cold email ideas here. I'm just going to go through a handful of them. I'm not going to go through all of them, but quick question or question name, while it is very commonly used, is very effective. You should be getting 30, 40, 50, probably 50% or greater open rates on that. the one thing that I would say that if you're using that type of subject line, you want to make sure that your copy is very, very relevant and personalized, because otherwise you're just going to piss that person off, because a lot of people are using question. You probably have gotten cold emails like that. And so, yeah, you just want to make sure that you actually have a good email to back it up. All right, so that concludes subject line teaching. So let's actually do a little bit of a workshop. Maybe we'll spend the next 3 to 5 minutes and just have you guys write an example subject line that's relevant to your ICP. And so you can just type them in the chat, and then I can go through them together. Oh, Robert, I saw you said, can you make that bigger? I apologize. I will make sure I make things bigger next time.
Awesome. Yeah, excited to see what everybody comes up with for their subject lines.
Yeah, so yeah, it would be cool. We'll take the next few minutes, and don't overthink it. Just kind of think about, this is not, we're not trying to be perfect here. And I'll be giving some good feedback on, ways I think you could either you did a good job or strengthen it. So yeah, let's see some of those responses as they trickle in. Oh, let me actually pull up let me continue to share my screen so you guys can see some of the examples. That would make sense. So these were the internal email kind of examples. These were the longer email examples. And I wonder if I can zoom in a little bit more. How do I do that? Sorry, 1 second. Now PowerPoint is giving me an issue. Oh, Jason, I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Yeah, I was just saying we had a couple headlines come in.
Yep. Okay, perfect. All right. So Phil, earn free crypto, download our. Okay, so this is actually a great. I'm glad that we're talking about some people in the financial space. So cold email, you want to be very, very careful with those types of offerings, because there are actual scammers out there that will use that language. So words like free, words like ROI, investment, dollars. Brian, I see yours, best ROI. So first of all, it's a little bit of a gray area, because that you could, so I've worked in the financial industry, right? And when you're pitching VCs and angel investors, you don't really use that kind of language unless you're registered. So those, you want to be I would say to find a way to get maybe to the core root of what it is that your transformation is, right? So best ROI for investment dollars, who are you actually selling to, and what are they actually trying to achieve? Maybe it could be, something about wealth building, but you want to be, so those words, unfortunately, spammers have ruined. And so if you use those words in your emails, especially, over multiple emails, Google and Microsoft may look at you guys as being legitimate spammers and send your emails to spam. So you want to be very, very careful with anything like financial, anything around promises. Think of when you get really bad spam emails from people. They use all of these words. And so you want to avoid those. And I have some tools that you guys can use that will help you spot those spam words. So let's go through. All right. So Andrew Cook, name. How can I help you with your back office burden? So I think that's good. Yeah, that would definitely be something to test out. You could even do, name question there, right? If you're setting up your A/B test, but I think that's a pretty good thing. The only thing that I would say to also think about, Andrew, is sometimes when you do a yes/no question like that, it can backfire, because if they say no, they may never just open your email, right? But if you maybe ask them a question differently where it's not yes, no, it forces them to think and it piques their curiosity. Mark Condon, I have a dog product in the dog space that trains your dog to tell you when they need to go out. Name, train your dog to text you. I love it. That's awesome. That's a great subject line. Tisa, regarding 2023 DNI initiatives. Yeah, that's perfect. Hey, I steal people's frameworks all the time for cold emails, so don't feel any kind of way about that. That actually, you've seen it worked, right? So it's going to work. William Moonen, make your product historically important. So I like it. I think the creativity is there. I just would think about what would make that subject line relevant. Like, are you pitching to product managers? Is it founders, CEOs? Like, historically relevant, it's a little bit vague, to be honest, of like what the benefit of that email is, but I think it's very creative. So maybe you can kind of stay in that same line, but maybe make it a little bit more specific and relevant to your ICP. Robin, target audience regarding the best enrichment program for college admissions. Okay, love it. Andrew, should we keep those words out of the email? Yes, keep those. Any invest, like, it's okay if there's maybe one or two, or you want to test, right? But yeah, generally you want to kind of stay away from those words and use like more plain English to describe them, especially for like if you're selling financial stuff. We might have to talk a little bit after and dive a little bit in specific, because it's such a gray area there. All right, Robert, get the respiratory data you need to achieve your organizational goals. Okay, that's interesting. Are you selling to medical facilities or practitioners? It's a little vague, but I just may not know your ICP. Robin Klebnik, independent college advisors. Okay. And Kiruka, good to see you. Close your ICP before they see your product demo. Love it. And then Phil, earn more on your social network. Download Aro Social. Okay. Love the first part of it. Second part of it, you test it out. But my hunch is that it's too focused on you, right? And not focused on them. So whenever, just generally in sales and marketing, we always want to be focused on the buyer's journey, not our own journey. So I would test it out. Like, I don't want to say that I know everything, because I don't. Different people respond to different emails differently. But I would say that that's probably, it may not perform as well as you think it might, just because it's a little bit you focused, right? So, but those are all really, really good. So now let's go back to the presentation. Give me a second. And now we're actually going to we're going to walk through one framework for the body of the email. I have 4 to 5 different frameworks in this presentation. We don't have time to cover all of them today. But we'll go through one that I think is pretty straightforward to learn. Okay, sorry, my PowerPoint is loading. Okay. All right. Okay, so let's start with some best practices. Let me zoom in here, and then also let me do from current slide. All right. So generally you want to keep your email short unless there's a compelling reason to say more. Get to the point as quickly as possible and get out. Shouldn't be here, but you want to write your subject lines as if you were writing an internal email. So we already run over that. This number 3 is actually really important. Everybody talks about personalization, and personalization is great. In fact, it's a little bit table stakes, and we'll go into a little bit of like what actually personalization means. But relevance is actually better than personalization. So like, let's say that there's 10 companies in your industry that could absolutely benefit from your services. Like, it'd be better to write, or like if you have like a unique insight into their pain points and like you can prove it through your language, that's always going to win out versus like, hey, John, hey, I saw that, you went to Duke University and you majored in history, or love your career progression at, Microsoft to Google, right? Like, if the email isn't relevant, like, right, I could do that personalization, but let's say I'm selling HR services to I don't know, the CMO, right? They're going to be like, this email is stupid. I don't care, right? So you always want to make sure that you nail your relevance first and then layer in your personalization. And ideally, your personalization should be relevant as well. Ideally. Doesn't always have to be, but relevance is always going to win. Number 4, seek engagement over a meeting. This is something that's come about, in recent years. Back in the earlier days of this kind of outreach, just mass spamming people and asking for a meeting worked. It still does work, but you want to try to actually get engagement. You want to get engagement for a few reasons. One, this is the first step in building a relationship with somebody. So, right, just think about like how you've bought expensive things, right? Rarely was it just off one conversation, right? It was a culmination of you speaking to that person over time and you getting comfortable. And so B2B buyers are very sophisticated nowadays. And so sometimes just asking directly for a meeting can really turn people off. And you may be missing out on the opportunity to build that relationship over time. So you want to test out softer call to actions like, is this worth exploring? And then the last thing, most B2B messaging is boring. Don't be afraid to, be creative and push the button. Of course, respectfully, but you can try out GIFs or memes. You can use jokes, right? Use humor. Don't be afraid to kind of mix it up. Most B2B is so cut and dry. And what you're really trying to do is break the noise, right? People get a lot of emails every single day, and you want to be a little bit different. So I've got 4 different frameworks. We're not going to go through all of them, but we are going to go through this framework from Will Allred from Lavender. Lavender is actually a really cool tool. It's for cold email. It basically helps you write better emails and helps you personalize them. And I think it's pretty affordable. I think it's like $15 a month. I don't actually use it, but I know of it. And so he has a really good framework that we're going to work on today for cold email. So it starts with making an observation, right? Could be an observation based upon, a company's website, a mention in the news, maybe, a 10K, annual report that they have to publish. Could be something that maybe they like to post on LinkedIn. Then you want to make state a problem or insight based on that observation. You want to then talk about any credibility that you might have. And then you want to lead into what you do to solve the problem. And then you want to lead with, an interest-based call to action. So to give you an example of this, I'm actually going to pull up, a draft of a project I've been working on. I wanted to show, why didn't that work? Do this. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, here we go. My computer is running a bit slow today. I apologize about that. Figure this out.
No worries. Yeah, as that's loading, we had a question on the word opportunity and if that was too spammy or not.
It could be. I would say try to avoid it, but I don't think it's a deal breaker. Where do you go to find a good VA? Great question, Mark. So I use Upwork a lot. There's a million. So there's Upwork. You could do Fiverr. There's freelancer.com, and then there's always agencies. So a lot of the BPO. What I've just found is that I've used some of the agencies in the past. They can be good. It's just really up to you as the person to assess their skill set and capabilities, right? Because you can find people that are really good, and you can find people that are not so good. And then a lot of times you don't want to give, especially if cost savings is the thing, right? You don't want to, or even just anybody that's generally like kind of entry level. you don't want to give them too much what's the word? Like you don't want to outsource things that like actually require like high level, strategic thought and experience. You want to be able to give them like very clearly defined, boundaries and tasks and project deliverables so that they can succeed. So that's why, I recommend you do this yourself first, and then scale that a little bit later. All right, so I don't know why this isn't working. So let's just kind of I'll show you the prompt for it. And then I think we can just, we'll spend the next 9 minutes kind of working through this. And then we'll reserve the last 10 minutes for more Q&A. So using the subject line that we just pulled, so I've marked everything in yellow that we'll need to create the sample cold email. So we already wrote our subject line. So, I would write this from the prospect's perspective, right? So hi, you can put whoever's name you want to put in the body of your email. We're not going to worry about the personalization because this is that observation we don't have, unless you have somebody in mind that you're like, hey, I've been meaning to reach out to that company or to that person. Then you can go ahead and do that. Then you want to write that 1-sentence problem statement, a 1-sentence transformation statement, and then a call to action. And then you want to end it with best, your first name. So that's basically the prompt in the assignment. So yeah, let's take the next 3 to 5 minutes to write a cold email from the perspective of our ICP. And then I'm going to quickly exit out of this and then share just this PowerPoint. So that way I can also look at the questions and responses as they come in. Okay. Robin, I'm going to type a response to your question in the chat. Mike Hartwell. Mike, I'm answering your question as well while we wait for those cold emails to come in. Is anybody stuck or have any questions? Okay. Okay. Oh. Oh, nice, Mark. Okay. Name, train your dog to text you. Hey, first name, do you miss your dog when you're at work? Does your dog walker come by at the wrong time? Watch your dog through the video camera in the iPuppy app and have your dog press the button when she needs to go out. That button will send your dog walker a text message alerting them to come by and take your dog out. Visit our website here. Woof. iPuppy. Awesome. That's actually a great, that's a great cold email. I love it. Very creative. And I mean, just people love their, like, I think you're going to do well with that. The only things that I may test out. So I do you, is there an app? There's an app. Maybe it makes sense to push them to, the app as well. So you might want to A/B test that versus just the website, because it's an extra step. But yeah, I really like that. I really like what you're doing here. I'm assuming you have a little bit of a B2C product, so the personalization is not going to be as relevant here. So yeah, for yours it's going to be a little bit more of a numbers game, right? But I think you can do well with that. I don't have anything to add. I think it's great. I think it's short, it's to the point. Emotionally, if I have a dog or a pet, that's probably going to be appealing, and I'm probably going to be like, oh, this is interesting. So yeah, so that's the only thing I would change, is just A/B testing, maybe the call to action with an app. Hey, check out the app. Maybe you can put the link. Another thing that you could do too, Tisa, I love that. I love that suggestion, writing the email from the dog's perspective. Yeah, that would be great. So yeah, email could be good. Another thing that could be cool to do, like if you could have somebody go through like TikTok or Instagram and like, say, hey, saw that, the post or whatever with your dog or something like that, right? Like if you could even get that level of targeted, then, you wouldn't just be like spamming people, because, they'd have like a dog or some type of pet. And, that could be kind of cool to see if there's an ROI there, if you get better leads in that way. All right, let's look at Phil. Are you ready to take your influence to the next level? Hi, Jill. How much is your influence worth? Our social. We have seen that large social networks have taken that profit for themselves and not given that money to you, the creators of the content. RO Social has developed a new app that lets you earn up to 80%. Go to our webpage at www.ro.io and download the app. Cheers, Phil. Okay, Phil, this is actually a really, really great start. So I like the question, how much is your influence worth? And then I like that you really talk about the problem here. Like, yeah, those social networks do take a large portion of that profit for themselves and probably don't give, any credit or anything like that as well. And then, so those are some things that are really, really good. The only things that I'm a little bit confused about are, so I think maybe there's some typo, just like, so one tool I use a lot is Grammarly to like make sure that like the grammar is cleaned up. So like, how much is your influence worth? There should be a question mark after that. The arrow social should go away because it just doesn't read well. So I think how much is your influence worth is an interesting question. Are you sending this to marketing people? Like, or who are you sending this to? Is it like a content creator? Just so I can get more clarity, but I think it's a good question. Influencers. Okay, great. And then our social has developed a new app that lets you earn up to 80%. Up to 80, you mean 80% more than standard social networks, right? So like that, what I would clarify, because it's not really clear. So just want to make sure like you're super clear. And then the other thing that I would test out, so you're asking, so you have a call to action, but it's a 2-step call to action. Rich, if you've ever read the book Don't Make Me Think or familiar with it, it talks about like, web design and UX UI experience and like how you don't want people to think. So you ask them to do 2 things: go to the web page and then download. And so you want to choose just one. All right, let's do Patrick's. Hi, so-and-so. Happy Friday. I saw on LinkedIn that company is hiring and offering a signing bonus. No surprises there. It's been tough for a lot of companies in your industry to find great staff. However, most companies we speak with don't have a good process to manage these bonuses, meaning they are sometimes ineffective and have no accountability. We've built a platform that makes the issuing and management of signing retention bonuses more efficient and shuts the door on invested bonuses. I'd love your take on our product. Can we schedule a quick call to see if a longer conversation is warranted? Okay, and then you put the Calendly. No worries, Travis. I'll catch you later. So Patrick, great start. There's a lot of really good stuff in here. And so let's dive into it. So first things first, I would well, let me harp on what you did really well. So great, you did your research. You saw on LinkedIn that they're hiring and they're offering a signing bonus. So that's going to be super relevant and means most likely they're not going to mark you as spam and they're actually going to be intrigued. No surprises there. And you talk about like the pain points, like you clearly know what they're going through it. So that's probably going to be very persuasive. And then you really kind of dive into the program, the problem. So those I think are all really good things. Even I'd love your take on our product, right? Like I like that as actually like a call to action. So I think those are all some really good things. And you really talk about the benefits of working with you, and it's very tangible, right? Makes things more efficient, shuts the door on invested bonuses. So the things that I would change. So one, happy Friday. Like niceties like that, while I understand where you're coming from, you're selling, right? So you don't know this person yet and you're interrupting them. So you want to get to the point as quickly as possible. So like a nicety like that is really not really needed. And then I think that it's a little bit long of an email, but I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing because there's a lot of really good content in there. So I would just break it up into like 1 to 2 sentence paragraphs. And then the last thing that I would probably change or tweak or A/B test is just like, instead of asking for a call, say like, I'd love your take on our product. Like, what do you think? So you can A/B test that up with asking for a call. And then I would also A/B test, you put your Calendly link in there. That can work, but most oftentimes people send Calendly links when they've already agreed to speak. So you're kind of being a little bit presumptuous there. So you can try it, but like once again, you just want to A/B test. I would A/B test it as a call to action. So like this is kind of where I was getting at. Like you don't know what may work, so you want to try something that's a little bit more conversational based. You want to try something that's a little bit more direct, meetings based, and asking for a call is a little bit different than putting the Calendly link in there. Although you can book meetings that way, it's just probably unlikely. Okay, cool. And then we'll do Robert, and then we'll do some Q&A. I know we're running a little bit behind, but yeah, no worries, Patrick. Hi, Robert. Hi, so Robert. Hi, John. You need real-time exhaled breath data to make sure your troops are in peak physical shape. That data can be hard to collect quickly via traditional saliva and blood draw. Our device can collect the respiratory and metabolic data quickly in real time in up to 1 minute without the need to draw blood or take a saliva swab. Let's schedule a time to discuss. Best, Bob. Okay, that's actually a really good email. Very succinct, straight into the point. I like it. I like, this can work well. Sometimes like if you really know, like you can assume like, yeah, you need real-time exhaled breath data, like provoke them and tell them why. And you did, that data can be hard to collect quickly. So they're probably, probably talking to doctors or not doctors, but well, maybe doctors that are leading troops or somebody responsible for their health, right? And I love how you talk about the device. The only thing that I would A/B test here a little bit, so let's schedule a time to discuss. You could say like what works to connect, or like I would even say like get the conversation started too. Like test this out. Like, hey, like what are you seeing with your current troops right now, or like what data are you collecting on your troops right now? So that way it kind of starts the problem, and then you can start diagnosing, and it really puts you in a very consultative way. Like, and that's something that I generally, just one last piece of advice. Generally, you want to position yourself as consultative versus just like, hey, I'm just a salesperson trying to get a hit. So that's why like some of the softer questions where you're just trying to get responses can work or are working nowadays because people really want that. All right. And then one quick one. Michael Sweeney, most competitive intelligence programs result in endless work and stress for you. Our program helps you gather the right data and make efficient comparisons. Register for our upcoming workshop here. So yeah, Michael, I think this is really good. So I like how, you talk about like the endless work and stress. I actually really like emotional like benefits and kind of teasing them. And then I like how you talk about how you help gather the right data and make efficient comparisons. So I think there's a little bit more I think in this email that's needed. So like one, how do you know they have a competitive intelligence program and that they're experiencing that problem, right? So like I think you need to maybe rework a little bit of that like problem statement, and then your your solution benefit could line up a little bit better with your problem statement, right? So like you talk about that endless work and stress, right? But how do you actually alleviate it? Is it because the data is all over the place? It's all scattered. Is that why it's endless work, right? Like I think you can explain a little bit, like talk a little bit more to the pain point. And then register for our upcoming workshop here. It's a little bit too abrupt of a jump. So you might want to bridge that gap by saying something like, I know you're super busy and you're probably not open to considering like service providers right now, but we have a workshop that shows you how to do this within like a half hour, 60 minutes, right? You want to sell the workshop a little bit, right? You don't want to like, hey, come to my workshop, like sell it a little bit, right? Remember, you're teasing a potential solution. So that's kind of how I would like change that email and just strengthen it. So explain a little bit more, dive a little bit deeper into the problem, and then sell the workshop a little bit more. All right. So we've got 4 minutes left. So I want to do some quick Q&A. So Mike's question has been, there for a little bit, for almost a half hour. So Mike Hartwell, this is to you. Maybe this is too specific, but do you typically see individual employees reaching out on behalf of the company they work for? Yes, we do. That happens all the time, whether that's a salesperson, a partnership director, whatever. So for example, say I was a project manager of an e-commerce web development company and wanted to approach an online retailer about opportunities to improve their online e-commerce experience, okay? Knowing that they have a close LinkedIn connection, while LinkedIn seems like the best platform for making quality connections, who in the company do you focus on? Do you reach out to more than one contact at the company with a similar message, maybe from similar employees who have a shared connection? Do you follow up with no response? So great question. Who do you focus on? So remember when I was showing you that first, the planner, and I was like showing the experiments? Like your question is a great question, and the way to solve it, I can't solve that for you. You just have to test it out. You have to actually send emails to and structure and say, hey, I sent 10 emails to 10 VPs of e-commerce or directors of e-commerce at these types of companies. And what happened? And I sent 10 emails to, these people responsible for life cycle retention marketing, right? Because they might be adjacent to e-commerce, right? And what happened? And so yeah, you have to basically test that out to figure out who's the right person to focus on. And yeah, you're going to follow up with them. Your sequences should be at least 4 emails long. So that way you get enough, like, I would say maybe 30% of people are going to respond to your emails will respond in the first email, and the rest will respond, the remaining 70% will respond in the subsequent follow-ups. Let's see. Yeah. So if you do want to reach out to more than one person at the same company, that's fine. So there's 2 things to be aware of. One is do your research on the company and make sure the email is relevant to the company. That's the first thing. Second thing is don't send the exact same email to different people because they care about different things. So for example, if you send the email to the director of e-commerce, right? Or the manager of e-commerce or the VP of e-commerce, they care about the whole e-commerce operation. So they're very high level. But if you send the email to, the director of CRM, they care about CRM, lifecycle management, all that type of stuff, right? Tangentially related to some aspects of e-commerce, right? But in a very specific function. So that's the thing that I would say. If you want to do that, I would do my personalization on the account, research on the account, make it relevant, and then, slightly tailor that message to whoever I'm reaching out to. So hopefully that was helpful. I think, yeah, we're at 1 more minute left. So that concludes my workshop. Okay, Robert Foney, what are the best cold email distribution platforms? Great question. So I use Apollo.io. And in the presentation that will be shared with you guys afterwards, I have a whole list of platforms that you guys can play around with. So hopefully that was useful for you guys. I guess I'll turn it back over to Jason to lead us out.
Awesome. Yeah, that was a amazing workshop. Appreciate all the great participation in the chat throughout. And yeah, we'll share the recording and the presentation with the link out to the spreadsheet that you went over as well. And, you know, I'll follow up with everybody about our other upcoming events. And if there's any other ways we can help support, feel free to reach out. So yeah, you'll be getting a follow-up email over the next day or two, and look forward to connecting with everyone further. Thanks again, Sam. That was great.
Awesome. Yeah, no worries, guys. I enjoyed teaching. And yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn if you have any further questions. Happy to chat.
Perfect. Appreciate it. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll be in touch shortly.
Bye.